I feel like I grew up in the best time because I grew up pre-cell phones, pre-computers, and at the same time, when the world of computers and stuff exploded, it was my generation who built a lot of it. So I've been able to live both, and that's a huge benefit because I got to actually look people in the face, actually talk to them, actually be able to have some independence, not tethered to something that has now become everybody's life.
That's correct. So when you look at education in general, there's all kinds of studies out there that show the mental benefits, the social benefits, the academic benefits of restricting cell phone use during instructional time in schools. It is just everywhere. Use that internet thing, Google it, and it'll give you thousands of reports on this, of how the advent of the cell phone being introduced into our classrooms has caused massive deterioration with the mental health of our students, the desocialization of our students, the dehumanity, I'm going to make a word up there, stripping away the humanity from each other. And then lastly, the downward trend in academic results and learning. And so we're going to run a bill this year in the General Assembly that at a bare minimum, a local school district has to have a policy that during instructional time, the students cannot have their cell phones in their hands. They have to be put away somewhere. Now, if you want to put them in a corner of a room where the school safety assessment says that's the safest part to be, and you hang them in those little pocket little things that you see.
Yeah.
Or there's my school that my son goes to. They're going to give them this little bag.
That's what my son has. That little bag.
And it locks during the day, and then they have to unlock it at the end of the day. That's fine too. Or got to come up with a solution. But it also gives the districts the ability that if they want to go above and beyond that, like Warren County schools, they ban cell phones bell to bell. That's the prerogative of the local. But what we're going to say at the state level is the bare minimum is during instructional time, they have to be prohibited from being in the students' hands. But also, we're going to make them put into the student code of conduct that if there's a violation of that, there's a penalty for it. You got to reinforce it with a penalty.
Yeah, my son, he's allowed to have it at lunch. And that's it. So not even when they're walking the hallways and they got 5 or 10 minutes between their class do they get it. It is just at lunch for their 25 or 30 minutes.
Now, you and I could probably sit down and argue that the best time for them to not have it when they're away from academics is in the lunchroom when they're talking to their buddies.
Yeah.
Engage their buddies in conversation. Hey, what happened last night? What about the football game or soccer game or softball game? We've got to get kids talking more to each other. If you tour school districts right now in the high school level that have banned cell phones in the students' hands, the discussions that are going on in those classrooms are outstanding. It's like the days of yesteryear where a teacher brings up a current topic, like let's say immigration, and the kids start to talk about it, but they talk about it to each other in a respectful way that humanizes everybody so that they can understand, hey, his opinion is different than mine. Let me listen to what they have to say and see if I can agree or disagree with them. That's how we escalate learning.
We should make some adults learn that.
That's right. Well, and our colleges and universities are the same way, right?
Yeah.
I've gone to some colleges and sat in a class where everybody has their phones on, but they're just recording the professor. They're not even paying attention.
Yeah, they're all recording the professor.
Right?
That's the thing to do. It's like, oh, I can be here but not be here.
And so we've got to get that re-engaged where our places of higher learning go back to be the interaction between individuals discussing ideas.
Well, and on top of that, we're talking to Rep. Cepicky as we talk about the cell phone bill. On top of that, part of life and part of growing is learning how to disagree, but also your imagination of building, different games, doing different things, overcoming obstacles and stuff. And we've taken all that away because we're allowing technology itself to do a vast majority of that, which is not good.
Well, one of the things we were very concerned about was technology supplanting learning, right? You just become a crutch, artificial intelligence. You tell artificial intelligence to do something and it just cranks it out for you. Last year, we ran a bill that each school system and university in the state of Tennessee is required to have an artificial intelligence policy, basically stating what is allowed and what is not allowed, so that everybody's operating on the same playing field. Go ahead.
Several people are chiming in. They've about the cell phone bill because why don't the teachers like the cell phone bill? First of all, a lot of teachers lean left, and it doesn't really matter what you say. It could be the bill they want, but if you choose it for some people.
They're saying the teachers don't like it?
Some of them, that's what somebody, why do a lot of teachers not like it? I think a lot of teachers do like this.
The bill came from teachers.
Yeah, but I think you'll see one or two that are disgruntled, and of course, like everything, that's the one that's going to get the play. Why wouldn't teachers want this? They would love this. Wait, you got to pay attention to me?
Well, one of the things that teachers have complained about, the number one reason that they're leaving the classroom is lack of discipline in the classroom.
Oh.
This allows them to reestablish discipline in the classroom and self-control, right, for their students. And I think as a teacher, in football practice, right, I tell my kids all the time, if I can't see your eyes, I know you're not paying attention to me.
Yeah.
Now those teachers get to engage these students, and they get to look in their eyes and start to engage them educationally and let them start to learn. And here's a really great word, think. Think.
Well, you talked about AI. Part of critical thinking is the fact that we got to try to figure out how to get these kids to critically think. Well, they don't have to anymore because they got a phone.
Correct.
The phone will do all the critical thinking for them. So it is one of those things where, like when we were growing up, the closest thing we got was maybe a calculator would do something. But that's a big issue when you've taken away the need to critical think.
So we used to have calculators, right?
Yes.
But you still had to know how to manipulate the calculator to get it to work. Now you can speak it all, and it does it for you. And so we've got to get back to this, and it sounds core. I know some people are saying they're rolling their eyes, he wants to go back to the good old days. Well, let me tell you something. Those people from the good old days got our technology to where it is today.
Yeah.
Right? Learning is good. Thinking is good. Discussion is good. And I think if we can get our public schools to start to get a little bit more of the reflection of what happens in private schools, to that autonomy and the creativity introduced back into our classrooms in public school, I think you'll see our public schools take off.
Talking to Rep. Cepicky, as we talk about a lot of things that have to do with schools, some people are chiming in and also say, well, what about the shooting? Obviously, you and I are touching on a little bit because, parents are like, this is why I want my kid to have a phone. You're not saying the phone can't come. You're not saying they can't have access. If the shooting would happen, they all would have had access to their phones and they could have called their parents. There's this fear that nobody in school is going to have a phone, which is bizarre that you would think that.
Well, that's right. There's a portion of the bill that says in the policy they have to have in the policy that during an emergency, students have access to their phones. It's very simple. And you've seen these things where people buy these things on the back of the doors and they put all their shoes or their socks in them. Same kind of principle. They're all over the state right now. The kids walk in, they take their cell phones, they turn it off, and they put it in one of the little holes, and it just sits there during the day. God forbid there's an emergency, they have the ability to access and be able to communicate. As you know, most of these shooters that get reported are from students calling 911.
Yeah.
And so, yes, we're going to allow them to have access to them in emergency, but the most important thing is during learning time, during academic instruction, we want them focused on the topic.
It's going to be interesting for sure. Because again, I'm a big proponent of, and these things, let's be real, all of us, you listening now, we're tethered to this thing. I mean, they built it to be addictive.
It's right in front of me right now.
They built it to be addictive. That's what they wanted it to do. I don't think they ever realized it was going to be what it has become. Also, I don't think they ever realized the power that this thing was going to have, the compute power. Like we always say, this thing has more power on it than what went to the moon, or to wherever Kubrick filmed it. But the reality is I want to see what it looks like when it gets into play, because I've seen school districts where they talk about depression goes down tremendously. The pressure of the kids, and they're, like we said earlier, the shoulders come down. It's almost like they open up, but also after a while, the academics rise.
Right.
And there's enough issues with we got our report card this week for America, and it wasn't very good.
No.
Our kids even are worse than pre-pandemic, for God's sakes, in some areas.
Well, one of the things we talked about a decade ago, Tennessee ranked about 49th in the country in education.
Yeah.
And that's not where we need to be. We've been working over the last decade, and we've got ourselves up to about 34th, right around there. And that's fantastic. I mean, the teachers, everybody's doing a great job, but that's not good enough, right?
No.
Right? We got to get our goal should be to be the best. No matter what we do in life, right? And everybody knows this. No matter what you do in life, you want to be the best at what you do because it feels good, right?
Absolutely.
But if you miss, being just short of the best is still a pretty good spot to be in.
Yeah,
and
totally.
We've got to have our kids looking at life as I like something, and I want to go be the best at it, whether that's serving your country in the military, going to a community college to get an associate's, going to a 4-year, or going to a TCAT center and learning a trade, right? It is what and how we can engage those students as they go through their academic life, building year after year, to eventually get them to a point that they can choose whatever they want to do in life and be successful at it.
Have you talked to students? Well, you got a kid. Like, I have a feeling, and I see with my kids, when the pressure is taken off them because you make a decision, take the phone away. Mm-hmm. It is tremendous, and I think they like the fact that people are going to do that, and not so much force them, but do it because, hey, we're doing this. Mm-hmm. I think some kids are going to actually enjoy the no pressure.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I've toured some schools in Tennessee that in high schools, it's not a policy, but the teachers just say, put your cell phones away.
Yeah.
And then the teacher starts to teach, and they start asking questions, and that eye contact, that engagement from the students, you see it start to happen. Then it starts to build as more people get engaged, where now you've got 25 to 30 kids that are discussing a topic, exactly what we want. That's how they learn, right? And I think as we move forward with this, yeah, there's going to be some teachers that are going to complain. I get it. But we have to look in general, what is best for the people and for the children here? And I think is during instructional time, it's not a lot, right?
No.
During instructional time, the minimum is you can't have your phone.
Which is, you don't want your kid to have the phone at dinner, right? Like that's just it. You don't, I want the kids to have the phone at dinner. It shouldn't be that hard. And, like a lot of work, you can't have your phone in a lot of places.
That's correct.
Right?
That's correct.
And by the way, air traffic controller, you can't even bring your phone in the building.
No, that'd be bad.
Yeah, that is bad. That'd be very bad. I want you to stick around because there are some other things I want to talk about. Obviously, the school bill is going to be interesting. You and I were discussing a little bit. I want to get into more. And also the immigration thing, because I think it needs to be talked about, because we may have a differing opinion on this, because and I know the ACLU is already getting ready to file. It's funny, they're filing a suit, but not on all of it, just on a particular part of it. And I'm like, I kind of agree with that. And so I want to talk to you about that. Rep. Cepicky is here. We're going to talk more about that straight ahead. This is the Chad Benson Show, Super Talk 99.7. Rep. Cepicky is with us. We're talking schools. We're talking cell phones. We're talking all kinds of stuff.
Recess.
What do you do at recess? What was your favorite part of recess? I was really good at kickball, but we all recognize how good I was at kickball. Heck, I wore shorts in today, kids. Okay, so the immigration bill, ACLU has already said they're going to sue.
Mm-hmm. That's shocking to you. I know that.
Well, no, they sue for everything. Some things, they used to be an organization I think a lot of people looked up to, even conservatives, who thought you're fighting for certain things. Then they got wacky and things went sideways. Mm-hmm. I want you to explain it, because I'm trying to wrap my head around how it's constitutional that if you vote for something, that it's a felony. Ugh. Because to me, I'm thinking to myself, well, then you could just do that almost with anything. You could just explain because Bell and I were trying to wrap our heads around that.
I will give you the non-attorney's version, okay?
Okay.
So, and this is not my wheelhouse, but I'll try to help you out here. So the way it's been explained to me is if every every county governmental body, every city governmental body are subsets of the state government. They get their authority from the state government. When we pass a bill, right, we expect that the locals will adhere to TCA code annotated, whatever the law is, because I swear an oath to the Constitution, no matter what level elected official you are, an oath to the Constitution, both federally and state, right? So you have to defend the law. You can't, and it says you can't pass something that's injurious to the people of Tennessee. And so the premise is, if we say that there are no sanctuary cities allowed in the state of Tennessee, a local municipality or a county cannot take a vote against state law.
Yeah.
It'd be in violation of their oath. Now, from what I understand is there was really no definition of what the penalty would be.
Yeah.
So they put a penalty in there of a felony. Now, I'm sure the courts will get in there and they're going to debate the constitutionality of this, of home rule, right? But I think the overlying fact here is the state has the power to enact state law that is jurisdictionally across the whole state. I can't say I'm just going to pick on you here, right? I can't say that someone who has a beard has less rights than someone who doesn't. Can't do that, right? We can say across the board, in theory, nobody has any rights, or everybody has rights, one or the other, but it has to be uniform. So at the 90,000 foot level, from the explanation that I've been giving, not only I've heard in committee and on the House floor, is basically saying is if the state of Tennessee enacts a law, you have to follow it.
I see the wheels spinning though, because you're thinking, this just sounds like that's very kind of conservative. Going, well, if you vote for something, you should be because you and I'm sure there's always a slippery slope of something.
Yeah.
Because whether it may not be you, but somebody goes, well, we should test this for something else. And that's always the fear. And the fear that you would even say, if you voted for something, that you would face a penalty just feels really unconstitutional.
Well, so this is another example they gave me is let's say we have a state highway that runs through Murfreesboro, right?
Okay.
And the speed limit is set by the state at 55 miles an hour. Okay. Murfreesboro cannot come in and adjust that speed limit. Now they can make it less if they wanted, but they can't make it more because that's in violation of state law. It's the same premise there is they couldn't take a vote to say, hey, Highway 96 in Murfreesboro, no, we're not going to do 45. Those guys in Nashville are crazy. We're going to let the speed limit be 70. No, you can't do that. And if you take that vote, one, you're going to wind up in court, but number two, in theory, because that would be against state code or state law, you could now say, hey, you're in violation. That's a felony. Also not applying to sanctuary cities, but law in general.
Yeah.
You can never change the intent of state law. So if we say it's 55 miles an hour, you can't go above 55. But if you said, hey, for safety reasons, we want to make it 35.
What's your gut say, though, that the courts are going to say?
We'll win.
Yeah?
We'll win. Because where's it going to wind up? Supreme Court. And I think the Supreme Court's going to see that as like the supremacy clause in the federal government, it would probably apply at the state level that we had the ability to say this.
Yeah. Well, I think they might look at like Huntington Beach said that they were going to be a non-sanctuary city, but then California just said, well, we have the rule of the law, so you guys will do what we say. And then, but then they said, well, we have city rights over state rights. It becomes that. Yes, Bill.
Do you know when we're expected to get a ruling from SCOTUS on the transgender bill?
When's the transgender? Do you know when the ruling's going to come? Probably this, May, June?
Oh, yeah. Anytime.
Oh, anytime, you think?
Yeah, I think we'll probably know by probably April for sure.
Oh, April. There you go. April. One other quick thing. Several people, again, talking about the ton of bills, immigration, cell phone bill, but also the implementation you and I were talking about. The company that is going to, there was no bid, right? They just they got it for what, $16 million over three years. It was the school's first technology, whatever.
Yeah.
They just got canned from Arkansas. Mm-hmm. And it was very interesting because I was studying all this stuff. I was a little curious why there was no bid. Secondly, though, is they've had some issues. Why didn't we do what Florida did at first, which is it's not really big enough that we need somebody. And until it gets to that point, why didn't we keep it in-house before we decided to push it out?
Well, that's a personal thing on my part is I believe in the government, we don't do things as well as the private sector. We really are not good at doing that kind of stuff. And what happens is now it balloons up. And if you create a department inside the Department of Education for this type of thing, we're going to have to hire 100 more people. Well, when's the last time, once we hire these people, when they ever go away?
Well, yeah. But when's the last time that because there was no bid, and that to me was a little, and they, like I said, the reviews out of Arkansas were awful.
Correct.
Big time. And I'm like, well, why do we give these people a no bid opportunity? Because while it's a private sector thing, I always go, okay, who's on the board? Whose wife's on the board? Who got something? And that's a fair question to ask because why would we give no bid job to somebody?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, and I'm trying, like we're in law here, so I'm out of my realm here a little bit. But I think if it's for
think of it in cows.
If it's for services, as long as the services they propose fit what we're trying to do, I think they can award that contract to them without that. But if it is for like testing, right?
Yeah.
For school testing, well, there's multiple companies that can do school testing. That'll go out to bid, and then we set what we want in the bid, and then if they meet those bids, then we can look at how much they want and start to negotiate with them.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's very interesting.
That's probably a William Lamberth question.
Okay, well, we'll see. Have to get him in here so we can argue that with him as well.
He's an attorney.
Yeah, well, he'll give us a closer view than the 90,000 foot. Next time we'll have you on about bovine stuff.